Hello! So today we're going to be talking about the endocrine system. So endo means into or inside. Crine or crine means to secrete. So this is the system that is secreting things. It controls and regulates many things that are happening inside the body. I listed a couple here, but there's a lot of things that are controlled by the endocrine system. Some examples are things like growth and development, male and female development during puberty, metabolism, how quickly you are able to break down foods and those chemical reactions inside your body, the level of salt and sugar in your blood, really closely regulated by the endocrine system, the volume of fluid in your body, how much water you're retaining, your appetite, many other functions. So these are just to name a few. So the endocrine system is made up of glands. Those are the primary organs of the endocrine system, and I have them listed here. The endocrine glands produce and secrete hormones. And we'll talk about what hormones are in a second. But you can see these glands are all over the body, in the brain, around the neck, on top of the kidneys, the pancreas, and in the pelvis, right, our reproductive glands. So let's talk about hormones. Some people just think of hormones as like when you're a teenager and you have crazy hormones and you're having mood flashes and all those kinds of things, mood swings. But hormones do a lot more than just regulate your mood. Hormones are chemical messengers that are secreted from glands into the blood and affect cells in another part of the body. Okay, so they're released in one area and affect target cells in another area. So they need to travel through the blood. So they're kind of a slow message, right? If you think of the nervous system and the brain and the nerves as quick messages, right? If I want to pick up my glass of water, right? My brain tells my arm and I can do that really quickly. Whereas hormones take a little bit more time to travel. So they're a little bit of a slower messaging system than the nervous system. Hormones are usually made of amino acids, which are proteins, or steroids, which are fats. Here's a couple examples here. We've got testosterone, which I'm sure you've heard of, human growth hormone, and oxytocin. Hormones only work on certain cells. Those are called target cells. So they're specific to the target cell that they're trying to influence. The target cell will have a special receptor that can recognize the hormones and allow them to influence the cell. Okay, so for example, hormone A in this diagram is this little blue circle. So this cell here has receptors for hormone A. So this hormone can bind to this target cell. This cell over here, the green one, only has these triangle-shaped receptors. So hormone A cannot bind to this target cell. It can only bind to the target cells that have receptors that will fit that specific hormone. Does that make sense? It's like a lock and key mechanism. Okay. This diagram might be a great one to draw in your notebooks. This is representing or modeling the path of a hormone, right? So we start with the secreting cell, which is inside the gland, which is secreting the hormone. Remember, we have all different kinds of glands, but they all do the same thing. So the gland is making the hormone, this little green guy here. The hormones are released into the blood, travel through the blood to the target cell. At the target cell, they can bind to the receptor on the surface of the target cell and then carry the message, whatever that message happened to be. Okay, so you might want to pause this video and draw this diagram because we will be doing some more modeling throughout this unit. All right, now I'm going to talk about some specific glands and specific hormones and how they function. I know this seems like a lot. We're going to do a lot of memorizing with these, but we will do a lot of practice examples where you will need to have these written down in your notes, so they're important. So take a minute and definitely write these down. Pineal gland, pituitary, these two are located in your brain. The pineal gland. And I did not write down every single hormone in the body. I tried to keep it as brief as I could. Melatonin is one hormone released by the pineal gland, and this helps to maintain biological rhythms. So those normal sleep and wake patterns. You might have seen commercials for melatonin supplements on TV that are supposed to help you sleep, and it's kind of a sleepy hormone. Pituitary gland releases a couple different hormones. Oxytocin is one that's important. It's also called the love hormone. So after a woman gives birth, this hormone, when she sees the baby and has the baby out, usually she has that feeling of love. And that feeling of love comes from this oxytocin hormone, which actually helps the uterus contract. So it helps that uterus go back down to size. And it also helps milk let down reflex during lactation. So when the mother is breastfeeding, it helps the milk to come out more quickly. I know they've even said, some lactation consultants say if a woman is pumping, trying to pump her breast milk, if they're looking at a picture of their baby or a video of their baby, it actually helps stimulate this hormone so that the milk comes out faster because of this letdown reflex that happens, which is kind of cool. Growth hormone is another one. Stimulates the growth, particularly in bones and muscles and metabolism. Follicle stimulating hormone stimulates the gonads, so the testes and the ovaries, to produce sperm and egg. So that starts to happen around puberty. The thyroid and the parathyroid, these are located in the neck here. And so if you ever see someone with a really swollen neck or something doesn't look right, definitely tell them to go to the doctor because it could be something wrong with their thyroid gland. So thyroxine and calcitonin are two hormones released by the thyroid. Thyroxine helps with metabolism, and calcitonin we'll actually be talking about a lot because it has to do with calcium absorption. So it inhibits the release of calcium from bones and promotes the uptake of calcium by bones. So it helps our bones absorb calcium from our bloodstream so that they can become stronger and we can store that calcium for when we need it. Whereas the parathyroid hormone does the opposite. So this stimulates the release of calcium from the bones when it's needed by our tissues, because some of our tissues need calcium to function. So if we don't have any in our bloodstream at the moment from our diet, it takes it from our bones. It's another reason why it's important to have calcium in your diet regularly. Otherwise, your body's taking it from your bones, which would make your bones weaker. Okay, some other hormones. We've got the pancreas, which is in the abdomen. So the pancreas is super important. It releases enzymes, digestive enzymes. It also releases hormones. First is insulin, right? Insulin and glucagon both help with blood sugar regulation. Insulin decreases blood sugar by promoting the uptake of glucose by cells. So it binds to target cells and tells that target cells to basically open their door and let glucose in, right? Cells need glucose for energy, so this is really important. Glucagon does the opposite, so it increases blood sugar by stimulating the breakdown of glycogen in the liver. So if we're at a time where we haven't eaten a meal in several hours, we don't have any sugar in our blood sugar is getting really low, you might be starting to feel a little bit dizzy, a little bit hungry, thirsty. The pancreas can release glucagon, which will release sugar into our bloodstream. Then we've got the reproductive hormones. In males, that's testes release testosterone, which regulates sperm production and male secondary sex characteristics. So again, this starts to be produced during puberty. Females, let me move myself here. Females produce estrogen and progesterone in addition to other hormones. Estrogen stimulates egg maturation and controls secondary sex characteristics. So egg maturation, again, during puberty. Once a woman starts having her period, that means eggs are being released every month. So that woman can get pregnant at that point. Progesterone prepares the uterus to receive a fertilized egg. So if that egg becomes fertilized, then the uterus is able to hold on to it and help it become developed into an embryo. And then lastly, the adrenal glands, which are located on top of the kidneys, release epinephrine and aldosterone. Epinephrine is that fight or flight response. If you were getting chased by a bear, right, your body just becomes overwhelmed with that tingly sensation where you could run as fast as a cheetah if you wanted to, or climb a tree, or you've heard of like women lifting cars off babies or things like that. You get an enormous amount of energy and muscle power in a short period of time. And then aldosterone helps to regulate sodium content in your blood. All right, now let's do a little practice with those hormones. So use those notes that you just took and see if you can answer some of these questions. So figure out which gland and hormone might be causing the following issues. So first, a patient who has a ravenous appetite is always energetic and never gains weight. Number 2, a patient who is constantly on edge and nervous. Could that be a hormone imbalance? An elderly patient who has chronic trouble falling asleep at night. And lastly, a 26-year-old woman having trouble getting pregnant. All right, good. Hopefully we were able to check your answers there. Okay, and lastly, it's important to talk about negative feedback loops. So in this case, right, if we're at homeostasis, our body is functioning very well, our internal environment is stable. But a lot of times there's stimulus that causes the body to be out of balance. So for example, blood sugar regulation, right? You have a large meal, we have a large amount of sugar entering our blood. So that puts things a little bit off balance. So there are receptors that recognize this in our cells. Our pancreas releases insulin. That insulin in the control center, which would be the pancreas, releases insulin. That insulin binds to target cells, which are in all the tissues of our body, so that those cells can take in the blood sugar, which lowers the sugar level in the blood to bring it back to homeostasis. Okay, so we've got a receptor, a control center, and an effector that bring the body back to homeostasis each time. Okay, so we'll definitely do some practice with that in class, going in both directions. So going above homeostasis and then below homeostasis for multiple factors, multiple examples of these hormones. Okay, again, here is that glucose example. Okay, so we talked about when blood sugar is high. Also when blood sugar is low, right? So if you haven't eaten a lot, the pancreas recognizes that, releases that glucagon hormone. So we can release sugar from our liver into our blood, which brings the blood glucose levels back to homeostasis. Okay, so these are all feedback loops that help keep our body in balance, our internal environment in balance. Okay, I hope that was helpful, and I'll see you in class.